Well, Donald Trump's struggles with insomnia tonight will include and be driven by his nightmare come true today when the Internal Revenue Service finally delivered 6 full years of Donald Trump's tax returns to the Democratic chair of the House Ways and Means Committee, Richie Neal. Donald Trump thought that his presidential superpowers could prevent the enforcement of a very simple law that requires the Internal Revenue Service to hand over the tax returns of any taxpayer to the chairman of the House Ways and Means Committee or the chairman of the Senate Finance Committee whenever either one of them demands it. Donald Trump doesn't want anyone looking at his tax returns, and now Chairman Neal and his staff can do exactly that. Elmer Stewart Rhodes' battles with insomnia tonight will include the knowledge that he may spend every night of the rest of his life the way he is spending this night, behind bars. Here's something you don't want your wife to say the day you're found guilty of federal crimes, including seditious conspiracy that could keep you in prison for the rest of your life. Beyond happy, he has absolutely never had to face a consequence in his entire life. This will be the first time he's spent his life making others pay. This was past due for him. In 2018, when his wife and 6 children and their dog piled into a pickup truck to escape life with Mr. Rhodes in a cabin in northwest Montana, the oblivious Elmer Stewart Rhodes growled at them, "Pick up some steak on your way back." They never came back. His wife has been in divorce proceedings with him ever since. Elmer Stewart Rhodes is a deeply troubled human being, and that trouble, no doubt, began with his first name, which he hates so deeply that he has managed to convince the world, even the New York Times, that it doesn't exist. He is Stewart Rhodes in virtually every report about his masterminding the Trump militia that attacked the Capitol on January 6th. Elmer is one of those names like Homer and a few others that seemed like fine names in the 19th century, but in the 20th century eventually lost currency, except in the character names of shows like The Simpsons, where the owners of such names are not exactly figures of great respect. Elmer Rhodes appears to have spent his life in search of respect, including self-respect. When he founded the so-called Oath Keepers in 2009, his wife was hopeful. She said he kept saying the reason why he loses his temper, the reason why he's violent, is because he hadn't found his path in life. So part of me thought, well, maybe this will help fix whatever it is that's wrong with him. Now that will be a prison's job, fixing what's wrong with him. And prisons are terrible at fixing what is wrong with people. The next legal step for Elmer Rhodes and his 4 co-defendants, all of whom were convicted of federal felonies for their roles on January 6th, is sentencing. Rhodes faces up to 20 years on seditious conspiracy and an additional 40 years on other counts. The sentencing process for all of Donald Trump's soldiers that have been convicted or pleaded guilty on January 6th prosecutions has been the same. They all tell the court when it comes time for sentencing that they didn't mean to do it. They were caught up in the momentum of the moment, and they deeply regret it. And they promise to never try to overthrow an election again. That's the standard sentencing memo that guilty January 6th defendants produce. Some of them have to go to greater lengths than others because of what they've been caught saying publicly about their actions on January 6th. Federal prosecutors are asking for a 6.5-year sentence for William Reed, who has pleaded guilty for his crimes on January 6th, on the day before the attack on the Capitol. William Reed said on social media, "I'm going to get in some trouble tomorrow," and that it was, quote, "time to storm the Capitol." So William Reed can't claim that he was caught up in the momentum of the moment. And then after the attack on the Capitol, after his personal attack on the Capitol, and before the FBI tracked him down, he posted this: "I rushed the Capitol. Hi, feds," along with a meme stating, "I'll do it again." Wow. quite a tough guy, very brave, challenging the FBI to catch him when they were doing a pretty good job of catching people who weren't challenging them to catch them. Now it's sentencing time for Mr. Reid, and in a letter to the judge in this case, William Reid writes, "I'm clearly flawed, but my issues stem from a single problem. I drink to self-medicate. People close to me, including former girlfriends, have told me that for years. I never listened. I rationalized. I never listened." That sounds a lot like his hero, Donald Trump. That sounds a lot like Donald Trump's field general on January 6th, Elmer Stewart Rhodes. William Reid's lawyer filed a sentencing memo with the court which explains so much more than how William Reid has found himself facing 6.5 years in federal prison. It explains much about the men of all kinds and all occupations who don't just support Donald Trump, but are thrilled by him, worship him. William Reid's lawyer writes, "Unfortunately, Mr. Reid has long suffered from crippling anxiety and depression for which he has never received professional treatment. Over time, he learned to cope with his anxiety by self-medicating with alcohol and by hiding behind a braggadocious, loudmouth online persona. His outspoken, vulgar online persona belied a roiling inner turmoil about his place in the world and a deep sense of inadequacy." How many of Donald Trump's 75 million votes are explained by those words, by that very character description? Here's someone who has a roiling inner turmoil about his place in the world and a deep sense of inadequacy. Here's someone else who has a roiling inner turmoil about his place in the world and a deep sense of inadequacy. And here's another one of those white Republican men who were hiding from the white Republican men who were attacking the Capitol on January 6th. And he has a roiling inner turmoil about his place in the world and a deep sense of inadequacy. And I don't think I've ever heard a better 15-word description of this man who has a roiling inner turmoil about his place in the world and a deep sense of inadequacy.
The government's evidence showed that almost immediately following the November 2020 election, defendant Stewart Rhodes, the founder and leader of the Oath Keepers, began planning to oppose by force the peaceful transfer of power. With Rhodes, defendants Kelly Meggs, Kenneth Harrelson, Jessica Watkins, and Thomas Caldwell communicated and planned to travel to Washington on or around January 6, 2021. On January 6, as the government's evidence showed, defendants Meggs, Harrelson, and Watkins forcefully breached the U.S. Capitol wearing paramilitary gear, while defendants Rhodes and Caldwell remained outside on the Capitol ground coordinating activities. Last evening, a jury of the defendants' peers found each of them guilty of serious felony offenses. As the verdict of this case makes clear, the department will work tirelessly to hold accountable those responsible for crimes related to the attack on our democracy on January 6, 2021.